We have got a story for you tonight. Isn't that right, Stephen?
Yes, we have poetry, we have Indian Game of Thrones, we have all kinds of violence, gore, intermarriage, and brotherhood.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. I
Yeah,
even I even wore my I even wore my Houston Rockets. I think they're a basketball team. I even wore this because whether we're going to war or going to the basketball game, somehow we all end up on some type of team that we're rooting for.
I think it would have been cool if you had a Kosala shirt and I got a Mugada shirt and we could duke it out online.
You know what? I think that's something that we can I think that's something that we should consider because I think that would be a great little item to put in our store that doesn't exist.
Yeah, but
Wouldn't
no one would want a Ajata Satu shirt, I don't think. He was kind of the bad guy. Unless you're always into the villains.
now I would want a King Bimbisara shirt. That would be amazing.
King B.
That's right. Okay, well, why don't you let us know what we've got on tap for tonight, Stephen?
Well, let's look at Mr. Walt Whitman.
Okay, let's do it, everyone. As I share my screen without the image, here we go. Let's try it again, shall we? Okay.
Aha, there he is. He looks interesting, doesn't he? Walt Whitman, one of the great poets of America, 19th century, died in the 1890s, sometimes along with Emily Dickinson, considered the two greatest poets of the 19th century of America. Very sort of considered rhapsodic. He was a native New Yorker, born on Long Island, lived most of his life, I believe, in Brooklyn, but died in Camden, New Jersey. And I believe his house is now a museum. Hopefully, one day, Regina and I will make a Uncle Walt pilgrimage. And so he was a man who participated in a way in the United States Civil War in the 1860s because at that time he went down to Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, and became a nurse. He volunteered as a nurse for the injured soldiers of the Civil War. And so he got to see firsthand the carnage, the horrible results of this war, men dying. We know that most of the men that died um, in the Civil War didn't die instantly. They died because their wounds were not well treatable. And so they died slowly and painfully, very often and very tragically. And so at the end of the Civil War, he compiled another book of poems called Drum Taps, a sort of a sequel to a very great big book of poems he had written earlier called Leaves of Grass. And so drum taps are very much concerned with war and reconciliation and love, that tricky word which we all struggle to define. So maybe if Regina could pull up our poem for tonight. And this poem is called Over the Carnage Rose Prophetic a Voice. We're not sure why there's a period at the end of that poem, but that's how it was printed in the original 1865 edition, and so it seemed fun to keep it, along with these somewhat curious carriage returns in the spacing. And I should just mention for our friends here who are not American, that might not know, that he talks about something called Columbia, which is not a reference to the university or the District of Columbia or a spaceship, but rather I think it's what he's talking about. What he's talking about is a sort of reunited America, a better America that has come back together. And in the middle of the poem, he makes reference to several states. And I think the point of this is that the men are coming together from opposing states or distant states, Maine and Carolina. So those would have been, Maine would have been the what was called the Union, the North, and Carolina would have been the Confederacy, the South. And so it's a rather intense poem. I'm happy to read it for you quickly. Over the carnage rose prophetic a voice. Be not disheartened. Affection shall solve the problems of freedom yet. Those who love each other shall become invincible. They shall yet make Columbia victorious. Sons of the mother of all, you shall yet be victorious. You shall yet laugh to scorn the attacks of all the remainder of the earth. No danger shall balk Columbia's lovers. If need be, 1,000 shall sternly immolate themselves for one. One from Massachusetts shall be a Missourian comrade. From Maine and hot Carolina and another Oregonese shall be friends tween, more precious to each other than all the riches of the earth. To Michigan, Florida perfumes shall tenderly come, not the perfumes of flowers, but sweeter, and wafted beyond death. It shall be customary in the houses and streets to see manly affection. The most dauntless and rude shall touch face to face lightly. The dependents of liberty shall be lovers. The continuance of equality shall be comrades. These shall tie you and band you stronger than hoops of iron. I, ecstatic, O partners, O lands, with the love of lovers tie you. Were you looking to be held together by the lawyers, or by an agreement on a paper, or by arms? Nay, nor the world, nor any living thing will so cohere.
Thank you for that dramatic reading, Stephen.
Well, it's hard not to get wound up when reading Whitman. He was such a passionate person, I think.
Hmm. And it's a very deep topic, especially for those who are from America.
At a very troubling time, very divisive time.
And very much so indeed. Mm.
But we have to turn back the clock now several thousand years and move to a very different part of the world where, not unsurprisingly, a whole new group of people were happy to try to kill each other.
That's right.
Fighting over something that we don't even quite remember what, but lots of people died and lots of people were very angry. And I think Regina has made for us a very handy dandy diagram to kind of help understand who these people were and what exactly were they trying to do.
I did indeed whip up something together because, as we have explained before in previous sessions, this Indian Game of Thrones is quite confusing. You know, you have sisters and mothers and daughters, and I don't know, Devadatta on one side, and it's hard to keep track of everyone. So here we are, everyone, northern India. This is where it's all happening. This is where the action is. And as mentioned, Kosala, very near to where the Buddha is from, Sakya. They're really one place, two places in one. And we have King Pasenadi here to the north. And we have King Bimbisara here to the south in Magadha. And as Stephen mentioned, these two regions were at war for each other. Why? Why does anyone go to war?
Because they wanted something.
That's right. They wanted stuff.
They
They
wanted
want.
the stuff in the middle, I think the
That's
answer
it.
is. They wanted what was between their two regions or countries or kingdoms. They wanted more. Yes.
And who doesn't want more? You know, of course, wanting more brings up problems such as war. So who is at war, Stephen?
Well, it's complicated, but thanks to your diagram, what happened was King Pasenadi had a sister named Kosala Devi who got married to King Bimbisara. So the king of Magadha's wife was the sister of the king of Kosala. And those two people had a child. The child was named Ajatasattu. Ajatasattu, well, Regina, would you like to tell the story? He fell in with a bad lot.
He fell in with a bad lot, and this bad lot, we bring in our famous Devadatta. He just, whenever he's around, just good things do not happen. If you remember one thing, just remember Devadatta, bad. So he got in with Devadatta, and his all loving mother say it was his friends. So that's right. Devadatta convinced Ajatasattu to, and this is why this scary looking sword is here, to kill his own father, the king Bimbisara, to take over the throne of Magadha.
And that's what he did.
Stuff. That's right. So he killed daddy, and then Ajatasattu got to wear the crown, and then King P thought, oh my gosh, I've got this new guy in town, this new person, and he's kind of spooky. He'll even kill his own dad.
But he's my nephew.
But as Stephen said, Ajatasattu, who killed Bimbisara, is King Pasenadi's nephew because he is the son of Kosala Devi, who's King Pasenadi's sister.
Wow.
So, right. But
wait, there's more.
There is more, because in order to seal an agreement or an affiliation with this scary guy, King Pasenadi says, here, take my daughter, make her your wife, and all will be good in the kingdom. So he sends his daughter Vajira to wed with Ajatasattu.
And she did.
She did.
But unfortunately, they still decided to go kill each other, family members. So instead of just having a nice Thanksgiving together around the table, they decided to have a massive war with probably thousands of people dying.
Right. The Red Wedding, if you will.
Mm.
Maybe Game of Thrones people will get that reference. But anyway, yes.
No dragons, apparently. At least no Nagas that are reported in this particular battle. Perhaps they were dragons unreported.
Right. I can just imagine Vajira on the back of a flying Naga. That would be amazing.
I know. Maybe you can make a shirt for that. That would be awesome.
Okay, that would be super cool. Stay tuned, gang.
Princess Vajira on a dragon, aka Naga.
Excellent. So I hope that you guys have enough of a backstory to lead you on to this battle that we're about to undertake here.
And the Buddha was sort of in the middle of it, or at least on one side of it. Maybe on one side of it. He was on the left side. In the left corner, we find the Buddha, pals with King Pasenadi, the same age, from the same area. And he's kind of checking this out. He's getting reports from his people. So maybe we should check out the sutta. If some people would like to help us read it, kindly raise your blue hand.
Okay. Who would like to read?
What are we up to?
Well, we haven't started yet. Would you like to start us, Sue Ann? And everyone else raise their blue hand.
Yeah, I will. I just missed last Thursday, so I don't know what one you're up to.
Okay, we're on 14, the battle.
Okay.
Battle part 1.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you could read a couple paragraphs.
Okay. At Savatthi, then King Ajatasattu of Magadha, the Vidahan son, mobilized a 4-division army and marched in the direction of Kasi against King Pasenadi of Kosala. King Pasenadi had heard this report, mobilized a 4-division army, and headed a countermarch to the direction of Kasi against King Ajatasattu. Then King Ajatasattu of Magadha and King Pasenadi of Kosala fought a battle. In that battle, King Ajatasattu defeated King Pasenadi, and King Pasenadi retreated to his own capital of Savatthi. Then in the morning, a number of bhikkhus, dressed and taking their bowls and robes, entered Savatthi for alms. When they had walked for alms in Savatthi and had returned from their alms round after the meal, they approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and reported what had happened.
Thank you, Sulan. So next we
You're
have
welcome.
Todd. Thank you. Next we have Todd.
Bhikkhus, King Ajatasattu of Magadha has evil friends, evil companions, evil comrades. King Pasenadi of Kosala has good friends, good companions, good comrades. Yet for this day, Bhikkhus, King Pasenadi, having been defeated, will sleep badly tonight. Victory breeds enmity. The defeated ones sleep badly. The peaceful one sleeps at ease, having abandoned victory and defeat.
Great. And how about reading that leading in paragraph, Todd?
Sure. In that battle, King Pasenadi defeated King Ajatasattu and captured him alive. Then it occurred to King Pasenadi, although this King Ajatasattu of Magadha has transgressed against me, while I have not transgressed against him, still he is my nephew. Let me now confiscate all his elephant troops, all his cavalry, all his chariot troops, and all his infantry, and let him go with nothing but his life.
Thank you, Todd. Leonardo, it's so great to be able to hear you read. Thank you for volunteering.
Of course, thank you. Then King Pasenadi confiscated all King Ajatasattu's elephant troops, all his cavalry, all his chariot troops, and all his infantry, and let him go with nothing but his life. Then, in the morning, a number of bhikkhus dressed and taking the bowls and robes entered Savatthi for alms. When they had walked for alms in Savatthi and had returned from their alms round, after the meal they approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and reported what had happened. Then the Blessed One, having understood the meaning of this on that occasion, recited these verses. A man will go on plundering so long as it serves his ends. But when others plunder him, the plunderer is plundered. The fool thinks fortune is on his side so long as his evil does not ripen. But when the evil ripens, the fool incurs suffering. The killer begets a killer, one who conquers a conqueror. The abuser begets abuse, the reviler one who reviles. Thus, by the unfolding of karma, the plunderer is plundered.
Thank you so much. Wow,
Thank
it
you.
seems, thank you. I'm glad to see that you're continuing to keep getting better and stronger. It's good to see you, Leonardo.
Thank you.
Very much glad to see that. So, wow, it seems in this that you just you can't win from losing, can you, Stephen?
Well, first of all, I have to say it's interesting that the Buddha never seems to come out and say, all this war is just a bad idea. I mean, he kind of says it, but he doesn't say it in a very direct way. He doesn't say, all we need is love, like the Beatles said, or Walt Whitman. He gives these interesting verses, which I think for me a little bit, some of it's a little hard to understand. But it's interesting, and it's definitely worth interest. It's interesting to look more closely. Sorry, Regina, about the elephants. I know that you don't like to hear about those elephant troops.
No, it's very upsetting to me. We've discussed this at great length.
Yeah. But in 404, which is the one verse for the first sutta, a little more above. 404.
Oh, 404. I don't know why I heard 405 in my brain. Here we go.
This reminds me of a bit of a verse that's similar that appears in the Dhammapada, But he says that essentially the peaceful one is the one who doesn't fight at all. And I think it's a great question for so many of us, this idea of pacifism. And in fact, I was just listening to a very interesting interview with the philosopher Bertrand Russell, who was a pacifist in World War One, who was imprisoned and was fired from Cambridge University for opposing the war so strongly. And it's a very unpopular view, I would say, that most people would say that one needs to make a stand. One needs to stand up for what is right and oppose forces of evil. One cannot simply step back, stand away, abandon victory and defeat. And so I think it's a very interesting verse for us to contemplate, because how many people can really do this? Um, and what is it really telling us? I mean, is it telling us to sort of simply not get involved in politics at all? I'm not so sure about that. Or is it a little more abstract? Um, but it's saying that if you win, if you're victorious, you have a problem, because people are going to hate you for being the winner. Of course, if you're the loser, you have an obvious new set of problems. And so it would seem, by this simple logic that the Buddha is laying out for us, that the answer is to simply not get involved in any sort of competition or battle or skirmish. But on the other hand, it seems to me that the nature of samsara is constant strife, constant opposition. And so it's actually quite hard to do that. And what does that mean, even to do that? What do you think, Regina? Is the Buddha preaching pacifism here, or is he kind of being more conceptual? What do you think?
I think it's both. I think he is literal and metaphorical or conceptual. I think, having grown up in a society that prides itself in competitiveness, I'll be the first one to be honest. I love competition. I love being competitive, but I also know what's behind that love of competition. Competition is because I want to win. I want to vanquish everyone that I'm competing against. I want to be number one. What does that feel like? I'll be honest with you. When I am engaging in competition, which is almost daily, even like who can wash the dish fastest. I'm staying with friends here in Texas, and it's like, well, I can dry them faster. It's just everything becomes a game of competition, which is why I'm wearing my Houston Rockets. Um, I think what's important is to feel that sense of, for me anyways, that sense of subtle aggression when I am being competitive. And it's there. It's one of those three roots that we're born with, right? And I think that is what the Buddha is speaking to. What does it do? Where is it coming from? What is the karmic fruit of that? And if I look back in times when I've been really aggressively competitive, it hasn't ended well. Perhaps I have won. But when it comes from a place like that, there will be people who are not happy for you having won. And so I think it always comes down to, what is the intention behind this? And certainly with King Pasenadi and Bimbisara, it's death, right? It's conquering to the death. And that's something altogether that so few of us really have an experience with.
Well, the big problem with winning is that there's a loser. And that's not a very nice thing, right? And if all we have is love, then, well, we don't really want somebody to be a loser. And so if we don't want somebody to be a loser, maybe we shouldn't want to be a winner, because winning means somebody has lost. I mean, maybe it's just not right to think of this zero sum kind of attitude where there must be a winner and therefore there must be a loser. Maybe we all could be winners in some way, or maybe no one can lose. But it seems, as you say, that very often the idea of winning, of course, immediately implies that someone will be a loser, Somebody will be lesser. Somebody will walk away disappointed, which can be sort of thrilling in a way for us, that they walk away with their hat in their hand, and the spotlight shines on us, and we ascend to the platform and receive the applause, while someone else just kind of leaves through the back door disappointed. And so it's a very natural thing to want to win, I would say. And it's very natural perhaps to not consider who is the loser. And so, on the other hand, I would say that it might not really mean that we're just going to sort of step outside the world and not participate in any way. Because if we do profess to love everybody, then we want them to be happy and safe and secure. And that might not be so easy. And we might have to take steps to try to ensure that for them and ourselves. So by simply separating ourselves out from the world, we could be sort of dooming people to suffering, or at least we're not doing all we can to help them be free from suffering. So I see it as a very complicated equation between resisting the desire to be victorious and the thrill of, lording over the loser, and at the same time wanting to love everybody the same and wanting them also to be safe and happy. And that might entail us to, in fact, wade in to a political arena at least a little bit to try to make that happen to the best of our ability.
Yeah, as you say, it's very difficult, especially the way the world's set up. Only one person can be a valedictorian of their high school. Only one person can be the salutatorian. Who's going to be top of the class? If you're going to be top of the class, there's someone who's not top of the class. If you get the top scholarship, someone else is not going to.
Yeah.
It's
Not to mention the sports, which are school sports are so encouraged and beloved by the community. But one of the things that school sports does is to separate winners and losers, or create winners and losers, right? You can't have a game if there's no winner or loser. It's not considered fun, worth playing.
Right, right, definitely.
Let's take a look a little bit at these later verses here.
Right.
Yeah. I just love, by the way, 406. The fool thinks fortune is on his side so long as his evil does not ripen. But when the evil ripens, the fool incurs suffering. So here for me, I would say personally, what I thought about a lot when reading this and then maybe next verse is, for me personally, that I have to hear, and maybe in other places, of course, too, take the Buddha a bit on faith. That I am not really able to understand the workings of karma. And the idea that everyone gets their just desserts is maybe not something that's obvious to me because I can't really see it. I can't understand people's prior existences and what's happening to them in the current existence and how the complicated workings of karma have played out. And so for me, there's a little bit of an act of faith here to understand that this rather fundamental idea of Buddhism, which is that evil actions will eventually, ultimately cause evil results, because we don't always see that. The truth is, we don't always see that in our lives. It would seem, to at least a casual observer, that people seem to do all kinds of terrible things and not really so-called pay the price. And so I have to sort of believe the Buddha here. I'm not able to personally see this for myself. And so, as I said, it's a little bit for me an act of trust or faith or confidence in the teaching of the Buddha to understand this and to inform my decisions. because it's pretty tempting to think, well, maybe I could just do this, and what could happen? What bad might happen to this? Because I don't see that. I don't see causality very clearly as just a regular person. The so-called unfolding of karma. What about you, Regina?
Oh, I agree completely. I have to say, you said it takes a little bit of faith. For me, it takes a whole lot of faith, because I have to wonder sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, when is their karma going to ripen? It's not fair. It's taking too long. So it takes a ton of faith for me. And the next stanza for me actually really helps strengthen that faith, because I've seen, this is something that I have seen in action. The killer begets a killer. I mean, this is something so pedestrian, but even in terms of like gang violence, or even violence between nations, or disagreements, between King Pasenadi and Bimbisara, we see that when one kills, I've heard of stories where a person's been adopted and it turns out that they've ended up killing people. Well, it turns out that their actual father was also a murderer, or a conqueror begets a conqueror. It's true, because once you become top of the game, someone has to now topple you. And we've all seen people who've been abused, and this is not for everyone. Not everyone who was abused becomes an abuser, but if someone kicks a dog, eventually that dog is going to turn around and bite. So I have seen karma in action in this stanza, and it really helps me in terms of my faith of the unfolding of karma. It's real and it's true. And I have to remind myself about the greater nature. When I don't see it happening, it happens and it's real. And I love the phrase that I've heard people say before, karma is real. You don't have to believe in it for it to be real, because it's true. It's just, it is real.
Yeah. One thing I have to say, which I have to watch out often myself, a sort of a foible that I encounter in my own personality, is to relish in people's kind of actions coming to fruition. Sort of to say, aha, well, there you go. They were doing these terrible things, and now they have reaped the rewards of their misdeeds, and now they're suffering. See, isn't that awesome? And for me, that's a sort of tempting thing to kind of fall into, which is not good, because really, even if we witness somebody doing bad things and then bad things befalling them, we should ultimately only feel compassion and love for that person, not a delight in their misfortune, Schadenfreude, or some sort of rejoicing in their suffering. That is just not a good choice.
Well, but I will say, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Steve. I will say that we also can see it in the other way. We can see people's karma ripening in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
and we can rejoice in that.
That is a good point. Yes, I agree with that. Well, it looks like we have some hands.
We
So
do.
I
It
hope
looks
this
like,
is not more questions about the intricacies of the crown and their families.
well, we can handle that. Why not?
Okay, we have the diagram.
That's right. We can refer to it. Okay, Jean.
Yeah, I guess everybody here, at least from this country, must, United States, must be thinking about this in terms of the election, but also in the terms of racism and things, where violence begets violence, uh, and we're finding out about more and more violence that has gone on, that it sort of remains half invisible in our culture, against minorities and all that, and especially African Americans, but also immigrants and people in other minorities. But I feel a lot like if we win, or if our side or our political people we're hoping for win, then how do we face that? That it's going to be, that we're not going to make things worse for the losers in in avoidable ways, and that we don't feel okay, now you lost and let's um, you know, you deserve to lose and all that sort of thing. And we're going to have to build the country back up. And I thought that's why, one of the reasons why I love that uh, Walt Whitman poem so much, that, uh, how we need to have compassion and good feelings even towards the people on the other side. Uh, or on the other hand, if we lose, that's going to be another big problem.
Yes.
And to control our anger and our frustration.
Right. I mean, we certainly know that after the Civil War, which Whitman spoke about, there was horrible goings on sometimes by the North against the South, the burning of the South. You know, this kind of wanton destruction of many cities, southern cities, and sort of a retaliation and sort of a kind of a victory lap around the South by destroying it, which only caused more problems. And so it's a very tricky thing to navigate for sure. And thank you.
I think I just wanted to add, for me, I have to look at when I use language such as us, them, we, they, other side, that right there to me already lets me know that I'm setting up opposition. And I think that is something to be careful of, because that's the very beginning of that.
How do you avoid that in this situation?
Think of Walt. Think of
Yes,
Uncle
there
Walt.
you go. Think of Walt. I think.
What would Whitman say? Maybe we can think of.
Right. I think it begins by listening and understanding. And I'm at the moment staying in a blood red household. So I will be going off to New York soon for the election, but I will be coming back. And my answer is we're all under one roof. It's the same roof.
Exactly.
So that's it. Literal and literal. Thank you, Jean. Sophia. Welcome back, Sophia. So good to see you again.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry you cannot see me today. I only can attend Sundays because I am working in the schedule you offer during the week. Thank you. I have the question is, I am surprised that in the Buddha's language, they have a winner and losers. I understood that there is not this kind of opposition. And also this is relative because this is a cultural issue. I noticed that in this country, it is a very common word, loser and winners, but not in my country, not in my culture, not in the career I pick. I select being a humanist, and in this place, we only have possibilities to learn, possibilities. We have a wide range of possibilities. Then I was also an athlete in volleyball. And the most interesting thing about being in a team is how to communicate with each other, how to find ways to reach the goals, but it necessarily doesn't mean the Machiavellic things that is horrible in the culture of capitalism or this kind of politics that are happening today. Is how I use, it doesn't matter what weapons, the lies or anything to destroy the other. This is the problem. If we have ways to reach our goals with ethical values, like Nelson Mandela do, or there are other Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, and other examples around the world. These other words, loser or winner, they are not necessary, but I like to know if in the Buddha language they have these words. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And one thing I will say about growing up or living in a capitalist society, remember, Buddhism encourages us to go against the stream. And so we can resist that. Stephen, if you can address that quickly regarding the use of this language, and then we'll call on Terania.
Well, I'm not so sure if I know about the linguistic subtleties, but certainly we know that Indian people fought against one another. Kingdoms battled it out, and we might label one of them a winner and one of them a loser, especially if they died. And there's certainly, as we read, words for victory and defeat. And so, yes, it seems to be whenever there is rich or poor, or two kingdoms fighting against one another, I think it seems to me that there's going to be what we would call today a winner and a loser. People who are winning and people who are missing out or losing out.
Right, which is why it's best not to play the game in the first place.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question and that point, Terania.
Yes, I wanted to go back to something that I think it was Stephen said it in the beginning, that the way the Buddha teaches, that he doesn't particularly take sides. He doesn't lay something out as being right and wrong. And I found that a big puzzlement for a long time myself, like the cornerstone of the Dhamma is that there aren't any fixed positions. There isn't a lot of dogma, so he doesn't say the Four Noble Truths, believe them, they're right, and anything outside of that is wrong. You know what I mean? He doesn't lay it out like that. And I think it's really based on a profound understanding from his own experience that the only way that we can come to realization is by a path of self-discovery. That you have to, and so that's why he keeps pointing. He points, okay, you think war is good? Okay, well, look at this. This is what happens to the ones that are defeated. This is what happens to the ones that win, and figure it out for yourself, kind of thing, And I don't know about you, but I find that very helpful because it goes so deep. You get it at a level that you don't get it if somebody tells you. But the paradox, I think, in the Dhamma is that, well, wait a minute, what about the precepts? Aren't they pointing out right behavior and wrong behavior, And what do we do about that? And I think that all of us as practitioners, we have to reconcile that somehow because they are not contradictory. There seems to be an effort to be behave well, behave ethically, and create a strong sense of internal integrity, for oneself, but not because it's right, but because it's the path of less suffering, and because we've understood that, because it's wise, that kind of thing. Long. I hope I didn't say too much. It's a long explanation, but it's a really significant point that are really laid out in any kind of guidance around war and battling.
Yes, thank you. Yes, exactly. He doesn't say to Pasenadi, stop fighting. He just says, watch what will happen when you do. Do you like it? Is this something you want in your life? And so, as you've said so well, it comes always back to personally understanding what's a good choice and what's a bad choice and what the results are of one's choices. Exactly. And, even with the precepts, we are told that we have to follow precepts, but we're also told simultaneously that the stream enter has to abandon this attachment to precepts and rituals. And that's always so puzzling too, because it's like, wait, we have to follow these rules, but then we have to set these rules aside or we can't be attached to them. What does it all mean? And it's definitely comes back to that central idea, which you've stated so well, which is that it always has to be understood individually, personally. It can't just be, well, the Buddha told me to do this and therefore I do it and then I'm good. It just doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way. And I mean, like the first precept doesn't say, don't kill. It says, I'm going to do my level best to learn about harm. what it's like to do harm. You know, to me, the precepts are based on an understanding that these are the trouble spots. These are where you're going to go wrong. This is where you're going to go off. You know, you're going to behave in ways that are going to hurt yourself and other people. So pay attention here.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. And it was really great spending the evening with you. And I hope that this has helped you in your, it's kind of prescient in terms of, at least in the United States, in terms of the election coming up, as was mentioned. Thank you for that. So yeah, hopefully we can just keep this in our back pocket to remember, you know, stay a bit out, be careful with the us, with the them. How does it feel to want to, as I used to do, kind of push someone aside to get that last seat on the subway? Well, I got the seat, but that person's standing now. How does that feel? Is it really a great thing? I don't know.
Keep cool.
All right. Well,
because in that Dhammapada verse that I mentioned earlier, the verse ends, the cooled ones set winning and losing aside.
so let's see, everyone. Let's have that be our next challenge. Let's like check in. Okay, let's see who can set winning and losing aside just until Thursday. Just try it once and get back to us and see how it worked out. I know I'm going to try it. Stephen, I'm going to ask you to try it and we'll report back. And I just want to thank you all for being here. And I wish that you all have happiness and the causes of happiness, and knowing that one of the causes of happiness and being our own friend is by following those precepts. We heard that from King Pasenadi just a few nights ago. So let that be our goal. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again with our further travels through Kosala. We'll see you Thursday or
Thank you.
Wednesday. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Night and good morning.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.